Okay, so we have already made, so we've already looked at basic spline editing. So I'm not going to over-explain some of the steps that I'm about to do. I'm going to assume that you've already completed the basic spline editing video, and this time round we're going to extend that process and we're going to make something a little bit more complicated, although not massively more complicated. We're going to make this kind of the metal part of a sword, like a blade. This particular method, using lofting as our method, is a really, really good way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, but in my experience, this one gives you the most control, and you'll see why as we go through it. Okay, so just to outline what's happening, I've got myself a vertical line. I'm going to just show you, I've got two vertex, top and bottom. Both of those vertex are currently corner vertex. There's no smoothing in any of them. If there's any smoothing, there would be curvature. We don't need that at this point in time. Okay, so both of them are corner vertex. And then we've also got an n-gon. So I said earlier we were going to use this n-gon. It's a very, very useful shape, so we're going to use that. And I've got another n-gon and another n-gon, 3 different sizes. And we're going to go through the same sort of process we did in the basic video, but this time we're going to just speed it up a little bit. Okay, so take the vertical spline, which is going to be our loft path. Lofting, by the way, comes from an ancient process of shipbuilding. That's how they made holes, and to this day it's still how they make things like roofs and anything where you've got an apex. You've got lots of shapes that are passed along a line, basically. That's all we're doing. So here we go. Take that, go to our compound objects. That's underneath the Create tab. Hit Loft. And I'm going to pass the smallest circle from 0 to 100% along the path. So path set to 0. Get shape. Take that small one. Just going to look straight away at the skin parameters. And I'm going to put the path steps way down to 1. Just because we can scale it up later on, but it's good to keep the simplicity in your modelling at every level. So keep your path steps nice and low until you want to scale them up properly. Okay, so maybe at 30% along the path, I'm going to add a second shape, and this is going to be the larger of the 2 n-gons. There we go. And then at, say, 80% along the path, I'm going to add the same shape again to keep the profile continuous between 30% and 80%. That's why I'm adding the same shape again. So I'll add the same shape. There it is again. And then maybe at 85% of the way along the path, I'm going to add the small circle. Oh, the smaller of the n-gons again. It looks like a circle because I was showing you before the n-gon can be both square and circle. And then at 100% along the path, I'm going to add the final shape, which is this second n-gon. Okay, so that's the principle done. And as you can see, it's not much like a blade as yet, but it will be in a moment. So previously I had used the, go to the Modify tab. Previously I'd used the scale deformation. We're going to use that again. So go into scale deformation. I'm going to make sure that at 0, this vertex is actually at 0%. Currently it's at 1.852. I'm just going to make that 0. Hit return. That's good enough. I'm also going to right click on it and choose Bezier corner. That's nice. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve like that. Looks fine. Might come back and edit that in a moment, but it's okay for the time being. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the loft, and at the sub-object level I'm going to choose shape. I'm going to choose this shape down here. I'm going to use my scale tool, and I'm just going to flatten that shape out. Just doing it by eye. And then I'm going to choose the other shape, and you know what? Let's try this out. I've not done this before, but I think, oh, that is not what I meant. And pause. Back in the room. Sorry about that. I just lost that shape a moment, so I'm just going to reshape that slightly. I'm going to take the other one and do the same. Just going to shape it. Now I'll talk a little bit more about what's going on here in a second. I'm just going to rescale that a little bit. Okay, like so. So let's look at it in profile. So you can see we're starting to get a nice kind of sharp edge down the side of the object. Something like a blade. It's got a little bit of a ridge in the middle, and this is utterly up to you how you want to play this, how flat you want it, how much of a thickness that you want to apply to the blade. It's entirely up to you. And one of the nice things about working with the shapes is you can grab them and use your move tool, and you can reposition them. Entirely up to you where you want to put that. That's kind of nice. So as we're going along, here at the bottom, remember we've only got one path step, so we're only pushing, you can see it moving, and that's that one division between this shape and that shape. It's only one division, but of course we can increase that anytime we want. So I can push that where I want it to be, and maybe I'll rescale it again. So I'll get my scale tool, just pull it out a little bit. That's nice. Okay, looks okay. Now, here's something I need you just to understand. This is really important. When you are, just come out of that loft for a second. When you are working with lofts, it's really important that you have the same amount of vertex in each of your shapes. So each shape has only got 4 vertex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one, of course, if I take the circular off, you'll see it's only got 4 vertex as well. It says 4 sides, but that means it's got 4 vertex. Okay, that's a really important thing. You'll understand why later on when you put more complicated shapes together, but believe me, that's the way it works. Keep the vertex number of each of the shapes applied to the loft the same. Okay, back on the job, back to the loft, and it's already looking kind of better. Why don't we look at that other shape up here? So this one, where do we want to put it? We're just going to grab it and we can move it. And remember, this one is the one that hasn't been deselected as a circle, so it's still got circular form, and it's running through to this one at the top. Now, if I take that one at the top, that shape at the top, maybe I'm just going to rotate it a little bit to give it a little bit of interest. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'll rotate it back. It's not that interesting, actually. Okay, just double check that point. That looks nice. Looks like a blacksmith's worked hard to get this blade as it is. And I'm just going to rescale that a little bit again. Just pull that out. And that looks good. And this one, I think I prefer it like that. Okay, in a little bit. Fine. And now let's go back to our loft and let's look at our path step. So add another path step. We're creating a little bit more subtlety into the object. I can take a shape like that. I can maybe move it a little bit, depending on the form that you're after. I think that shape there possibly needs to be just reduced in shape like that. That's kind of better. And okay. You kind of get the point. You know, all of this is very, very pliable. I think there's another nice thing you can do. If you hold the Shift key while you've got a shape selected, you can clone it. And you can create another subdivision or you can push it along the path wherever you want it to be. You know, it's good, which again is another little nice modeling feature. I actually don't need to do that. And if I hit delete, what damage will I do? None whatsoever. Put the shape. Oh, yeah, 1 second. Okay, delete that shape, didn't need it. Okay, looks nice. That point is pretty sharp. So we've got our path. It's only got 2 vertex on it, 1 there. I'm shortening it, I'm lengthening it. You can still do that. You can still actually affect the length of your object like so. That kind of feels like a nicer flow to me. Okay, that kind of is the principle. You know, we're adding squares and circles and we're able to scale them. We're just moving them along the lofted spline, or the lofted path I should say, to get some really nice complicated pieces of geometry. But the thing is, in terms of the actual geometry itself, let's go back to our shape steps, we can increase the smoothness of that, depending on how much our poly overheads are. I mean, we may be told by someone in a game engine that they actually only want a really low res sword, and within a few clicks we can remodel or retopologize that sword into something really low res or upscale it. Okay, that'll do. You get the point. That's not a pun, by the way. Okay, cheers. Bye.